Hello everybody, this is the thejonnymar, and welcome to my Halloween special. So happy Halloween everybody. I'm going to be playing, as you can see, Splatterhouse for the Turbografx 16. This was, I believe, the only major release of this game on home console. So we're going to watch a little bit of an intro scene here. Very spooky and sets the mood well. Obviously this is an arcade port for the Splatterhouse, the original arcade game. I do actually have the arcade game as well via Splatterhouse, the remake on the PS3, which has all three of the original games. So right off the bat, you're going to notice that the mask in this game is actually purple and slightly different than traditional, as I punch and kill things and use not a machete as in the arcade game, but a 2x4. So the story behind why in this version of the game that the mask for Rick is actually purple instead of the traditional kind of hockey mask style is that essentially when they were localizing the game to the North American audience, they decided that the mask looked too much like Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th. At least that's the way the story goes. And so they decided to change it to the purple mask. And I believe this is the only version of the game where that is the case. So every other version, including even the Japanese version of this game, which was on the, the equivalent of the Turbografx, which was called the PC Engine, his mask is actually white. And it's not just the mask, there are numerous other forms of kind of censorship and changes that they made with the game as well. And I'll try to touch on those as we get to them. But Splatterhouse is a side-scrolling beat-em-up game. I'm going to hide over here in the corner while I face the first boss, so to speak, of this game for the first level. And basically, you are Rick. You have entered this house with your girlfriend, Jennifer. Jennifer has mysteriously disappeared, been taken. Rick was possessed by this special mask called the Terror Mask, and that Terror Mask has given him increased vitality, strength, etc. Although if you watch the arcade intro, basically Rick looked pretty massive even before the mask was on him. It's a lot more dramatic in the remake in terms of how he changes, but then again, obviously this game is not necessarily canon with the remake. They're a little bit of a different game, obviously. So now we're going to enter level 2. So things to watch out for in this level are the background sort of skeletons spitting at you, because that vomit that they put can actually hurt you, as you can see. We have a new weapon, also the wrench, and it is kind of weird that they got rid of the machete. The machete, as part of kind of toning down the violence in this game, you'll notice as I hit enemies into the wall back there that they kind of just hit the wall. In the arcade version, they kind of splash out guts and stuff. They still left a lot of that in, it's just toned down some, so, it's interesting what they decided to censor and not. Here we have an actual scrolling stage, auto-scrolling. We're going to see these water enemies with a very cool effect as we hit them into the back wall. So that's one of my favorite effects in the game, and they left that one in, which is good. All in all, this is actually a pretty faithful port of the arcade game. I do plan on doing the arcade game at a later point, so that you can kind of see the differences between them. But in general, this version is pretty accurate to the arcade style. I like how the music kind of speeds up to kind of increase the frenzy or the sense of urgency in this auto-scrolling part. As you're jumping over these spikes, the first time you try that, you may notice that the jumping is a little finicky. Rick goes a little bit slower when he's walking in the water, and then he actually moves at full speed when he's jumping. But we are already to the second stage boss, a possessed room. So notice that stuff is going to fall from the ceiling. We want to try to avoid that by, again, standing on the right. And then once you notice the couple of bottles falling, you're going to want to attack the chair, which is going to bounce at you. So all I got to do is time it, let it bounce a few times, and hit it. And then once you destroy the chair, these knives are going to come at you from the background. Do what you do as Rick and punch them, because of course punching a knife causes no damage to Rick's hand. Now we have the tricky 2 knives, not too bad. But the hardest part of this boss is the painting, and I found ducking down and kicking tends to work the best for me. You may take a hit or two, but in general you can kill it fast and then get out of the way of the middle because, of course, the chandelier or whatever it is going to fall. So that is the first 2 stages. Stage 3 is actually pretty short comparatively. And we get a new weapon introduced here, which is the shotgun. But yeah, they toned down the violence, and so a lot of the blood and guts, there's still quite a bit of it, but they got rid of a lot of it as well, cut out much of it. And essentially, they got rid of some of the weapons as well, like the axe and the machete. Although the machete is still in the game, it's just slightly changed and they moved it. So this bridge has these kind of puddles on it that you can sort of see at 30 frames per second. They're going to kind of flash in and out. Don't let them kind of get into you because they're going to grab you and pull you down to an alternate area of the stage. And we have a rock or baseball. I will show you what that alternate path looks like once we finish the stage. I do want to try to conserve some shotgun shells here because the end boss actually requires 10 shotgun shells, and each shotgun only has 8, so you will get a second shotgun. So what you can do is kind of move forward with both guns, and then use up one, and then finish them off with the other one. Well, this is some awesome boss music. Of course, a boss in Splatterhouse is going to have chainsaws for hands. Very reminiscent of Resident Evil 4, the big baddie in the initial village stage of that game. But as we finish, I'll show you that alternate part of this stage. So if you get grabbed by the hand, you get dropped into another underwater stage. This one's a little bit more difficult than the one in stage 2. It goes a little bit faster, and also you're going to have more enemies, and you don't have a 2x4 this time, so I find jump kicks are your best option for taking out the water enemies, because your jump kick actually has a much better range than just your punches. So you're going to tend to hit them before they hit you. Otherwise, you'll take quite a bit of damage. But we are approaching very quickly stage 4, the halfway point of this game. There are 7 stages in the game. So I'm going to do the first 4 stages in this episode, and then I will do the last 3 stages in my next episode. But stage 4 has some of the worst censorship in the game in terms of this version of the game. We start with these harpoons. We're going to use them liberally. Don't fall in that little hole there or any of these holes. Again, that is an alternate kind of difficult path it'll take you to. This gets kind of tricky, and it can really cause a lot of damage if you're not careful, because these jumping fools and fetuses on the ground, they left those in the game. Those aren't creepy enough. They can sort of swarm you and do a lot of damage very quickly. And this stage also introduces these kind of floor traps. So all you gotta do is jump over them and avoid the knives so that you don't take damage. And then of course bats, because why not? And another bat. So I like this game quite a bit. It's pretty standard, right? It kind of set the standard for side-scrolling beat-em-up games of the time. It kind of pushed the envelope when it comes to gore and things like that. The story isn't really much of anything. All right, we're gonna look at ourselves in the mirror here, and whoa, we have a little clone. And so that is the kind of thing with this area, is that every 4 or so mirrors, you're gonna have a clone pop out and come at you in its blue mask as opposed to purple or red. And so you kind of want to time it. Once he breaks out, kick him, and then I like to just use low kicks. You can also use jump kicks, anything that kind of has range associated with it. Now, in a lot of the levels, if you take too much time and you kind of wait around, there is kind of this, purple nebulous kind of fog that's coming after you, and if you touch it, you will die, so you don't want to waste too much time. But once you kill 3 of the clones, you are done with this part. So we are to the boss. And this is where, again, some of the censorship is weird. So we have a boss, and you'll notice the blue head in the middle. That's supposed to be an upside-down cross, but they changed that. This is the machete from earlier in the game that got removed for a 2x4, but then they replaced a golden version of the machete here with the axe. So they took out the axe and gave us the machete instead. But we want to kill the heads, Ultimately, we have to hit the middle head. Yes, I die. So we'll try that again. You got to hit the middle head about, I don't know, 6 or 7 times with your weapon, or punches, I suppose. Although punches aren't as strong. And you'll notice I did a little bit of a dive kick there. If you jump and just before you touch down, you hold down and hit both of the controller buttons, you can do a dive slide. Which does quite a bit of damage, actually. It's inconsistent. I'm not very good at getting it on demand. So I want to destroy heads. Ultimately, I do want to hit that middle head that should be across. It can be difficult because, again, you don't want to get hit by the heads, and they are very sporadic in terms of their pattern, and you'll notice they're also reforming around the middle head. Ow. So I want to get into kind of a pattern here where I'm going back and forth and hitting it here and there on each side. And once I get that pattern down, it should be pretty easy to kill this boss. Maybe one more hit. There we go. And now we're going to see, again, another form of censorship. So we get this nice kind of angelic music from a harp or harpsichord. You'll notice this very bland environment here. So they actually removed much of what was supposed to be here. There was a whole altar here, and you'll notice it in the picture. And of course, because of crosses and all that good stuff, they got rid of it. They made it this just very bland, empty area with some candles. So everything's great, right? No, it's not. We still gotta find Jennifer. So now I will show you the alternate path. If you fall down one of those holes, we get sent to, again, an alternate path, similar to a previous area, which is essentially the boss we faced in level 1. So we have more of these blood worms. As long as you kind of stay ahead of them and stay on the right side of the screen, it shouldn't be too much of a problem. Just kick any that come near you, and you should be able to get through the level pretty easily. But that is it for the first couple of stages of Splatterhouse. I hope you enjoyed this. Happy Halloween, and I'll see you all in the next episode when we finish up the last 3 stages. So long.